the daily commute includes slowing down to go by automated speed cameras. Cities across the country have used them for decades, and today nearly 200 communities have them in place. But critics say that in places like Chicago, the tickets and fines they generate disproportionately fall on Black and brown residents. Economics correspondent Paul Solman has our report.
An open road in Black South Chicago.
This is another example of an arterial street with terrible infrastructure that encourages people to speed.
And at the same time has cameras that send out tickets automatically, points out Obayi Reed, Chicago traffic reform activist.
The infrastructure is horrible in our neighborhoods. Potholes, multi-lane streets, highways, entrance and exit ramps, arterial streets like Stony Island, Ashland.
And speaking of Ashland, the speeds on this avenue, says garage owner Shay Sumter, are sometimes
at least 60 to 70 miles an hour. Really? It's like a highway.
Truth be told, if I weren't here for a story on speeding fines, I'd probably be cruising at around 40 myself. Good thing I wasn't. Hairdresser Dyra Brooks, who runs a salon next to Shay Sumter's garage, had no such reminder.
I got a speed ticket. I was going like 35, 36.
In a 30-mile-an-hour zone. And then
I never received any tickets in the mail. That next Friday, I had a boot on my truck.
Chicago introduced automated speed cameras in 2013. The fine, $35 for going 10 miles an hour over the limit. But in 2021, the threshold was cut to 6 miles an hour over. Chicago has since raked in an extra $120 million, paid mostly, according to ProPublica, by drivers of color.
The program was rolled out under the auspices that it was all about public safety.
City Council member Anthony Beal represents the city's largely black 9th Ward.
We've learned that it's not about public safety, that the entire system is about generating revenue.
You're an alderman. The city does need money, right?
The city does need money, but if we're going to generate revenue, it needs to be off the backs of the entire city of Chicago and not targeted towards the black and brown communities where the people are hurting the most. I've had residents go to the grocery store. They got a ticket going to the grocery store and they got a ticket going home from the grocery store.
Those are the same neighborhoods that are food deserts.
Stacy Sutton has studied literally millions of tickets given in Chicago from 2016 to 2019. Who got them disproportionately?
Majority black neighborhoods or majority Latinx neighborhoods, those are the same neighborhoods that have less access to public transportation.
And more tickets they can't afford. Dyra Brooks paid the first just to unboot her car.
Then when I paid that, then I had to get on a payment plan for the rest of them.
Because the tickets, 8 or 9 in total, had doubled in price due to late fees.
I'm happy that we're talking about it because my payment plan is due tomorrow. So
it reminds you.
But
that's what these interviews are useful for.
So well, I appreciate you.
Oh, please.
There was a case of a firefighter in Chicago, a black man who lived on the South Side. He purchased a car for his son that was sitting on a lot. That car sitting on a lot accumulated tickets.
17 of them, with late fees, $30,000.
He can file for bankruptcy or lose his job. That's when I learned that Chicago has the highest rate of personal bankruptcy cases related to fines and fees.
In the country?
In the country.
Flat fines and fees of this sort have become a notorious way for cities to make money, as in Ferguson, Missouri, which helped trigger the uprising of 2015. The Justice Department concluded that, quote, Ferguson's strategy of revenue generation through policing has fostered practices that are themselves unconstitutional. These practices disproportionately harm African Americans.
Ferguson is the big case, but there's so many cases.
There is, however, it turns out, an alternative.
In the U.S., you pay maybe $200 for a fine. In Finland, you pay maybe 1%. It's in direct proportion to your income. So,
of your total income, says U.S.-born Helsinki journalist Matt Schilke, which, if your wealthy NHL hockey player Rasmus Ristolainen, meant a fine of $135,000 for going 50 in a 25-mile-per-hour zone just a few years ago.
This is something that's been in Finnish society for decades and probably will be for the next decades to come.
Good old egalitarian Finland, whose policy Chicago Alderman Daniel Espada admires.
I think that's a great idea. I honestly know colleagues who are working on ordinances geared around that very idea right now in the city council.
But Espada recently rejected a move to switch the speed at which tickets are issued back to 10 miles over the limit from 6.
We've kept it at 6 because we know that that is more likely to keep you alive in the case of a crash. We know that at 30 miles per hour, the likelihood of a pedestrian, a cyclist, even a driver dying in that crash is about 20-30%. At 40 miles per hour, that goes up to 90% likelihood of you dying in that crash.
As some of his constituents have.
I've met with the fathers and mothers of 7- and 8-year-olds who were killed because of the speeds that were being driven by motorists.
But, says Ashland garage owner Shay Sumter,
It was 3 deaths last year.
3 deaths on right here.
Right on Ashland.
Don't the speed cameras discourage that kind of speeding?
No, it needs to be a physical person instead of a camera.
So what about physical patrol cars?
Police-related ticketing can lead to horrendous outcomes, and we've seen that for Black and Latinx communities especially, but especially for Black communities.
The real goal, says activist Obayi Reed, to make Chicago's most speed-inviting streets less so. More bus lanes, pedestrian islands, crosswalks. Because as things stand,
we're putting the financial burden on communities that's already poor instead of the city investing in engineering to solve the problem of traffic violence here.
Alderman Lespada's response? We're working on it, with millions of dollars set aside in the city budget, including, he predicts, upgrading Ashland Avenue. I've been a journalist for a very long time. I drove down Ashland, I stood at Ashland, I watched cars go by. If I'm a betting man, I'm betting that there's no significant improvement of the infrastructure on Ashland Avenue by the time I come back to Chicago in, say, 5 years. Am I crazy?
I would love to take you up on that bet. I don't think you win that bet, Paul.
For PBS News Weekend, Paul Salman in Chicago, hoping, not for the first time, that mine will be a losing bet.